Okay. Okay. अनिल क्या हुआ, ये रुक गया है? हाँ, पर ये मेरा तो आ रहा है कि मीटिंग हैज बीन एंडेड बाय होस्ट.
No, you can all see it.
How come I'm not able to see anything?
There's a lot of background noise.
Hello.
There's a lot of background noise.
मेरा तो आ रहा है stay participant reclaim host. What does it mean?
We can see you and hear you.
You can see me, right?
Yes, and hear you also.
Oh, okay. Very strange. I can't see anybody. I don't know what is it. But you know, I can't see anybody.
No,
Okay. Just wait. One second.
Thing is, there's too much background noise.
Just that's what I'm doing. Oh no, it's here. Oh yeah. Oh, hello. Oh, Ambassador Sibal, you're finally in. Okay, so we'll start now. Everybody is in. Professor Sooklal, are you there?
Yes, but
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Manish,
Okay, we'll start now.
Hold on. There's a lot of background noise. Can you hear me?
You put your phone, sir. Put your phone a little distance. You know, there's no background noise here.
No. It's a kind of static. A lot of static.
Okay, how is that possible? Anil, what is he saying? Can you figure it out? We'll start now. Good evening, good afternoon. Greetings to all friends across geographies who have found time to join this conversation about the future trajectory of BRICS. His Excellency Russia's Ambassador of India, Denis Aleppo, in absentia. Russia's Mr. Roman Babushkin, Deputy Chief of Mission, Russian Embassy, India. His Excellency South Africa's High Commissioner to India, High Commissioner Designate Anil Sooklal, Ambassador Kanwal Sibal, Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharyya, Dr. Victoria Panova will join shortly, Nicolas Buchoud will join shortly, Dipanjan Roy Chaudhury, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, friends. I welcome you all to this online conference on BRICS 2.0, New Members, New Horizons, which has been organized in the run-up to the 16th BRICS Summit in the Russian city of Kazan. My name is Manish Chand. I'm CEO and Director, Center for Global India Insights, a think tank focused on global affairs, and India Rights Network, a media publishing organization focused on global affairs and the publisher of India and the World magazine. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, we are extremely lucky to have such a stellar panel comprising eminent diplomats, academics, and experts who between them have decades of expertise and experience in diplomacy and related areas. We are meeting at a time when the world order is going through an unprecedented churn. Crises and conflicts are proliferating, and geopolitical fault lines are deepening. Indeed, it's the age of polycrisis and paranoia. Trust deficit is growing, some would say, amid competitive games for power and domination. It's also a time of structural changes in the international system and multilateralism. The old order is crumbling, but the outlines of an emerging world order are only dimly visible. The global south is rising, and some would say the north is waking up to the urgency of accommodating rising and emerging powers along with other developing countries in this emerging global order. But there's still a long way to go before the international order and global governance institutions become genuinely inclusive and democratic, reflecting surging aspirations of emerging countries. This is where BRICS, or rather BRICS 2.0, the new incarnation or reincarnation of BRICS, comes into the picture. The motto of the Russian presidency and the summit in Kazan is strengthening multilateralism for equitable global development and security. The two key words, operative expressions here are strengthening multilateralism and equitable development, which in a way encapsulate the future direction of BRICS as well as the emerging world order. The search for equity and equality amid the widening gap between the rich and the poor and the North and the South cannot be overstated. It is this quest for equity and inclusion which is driving a large number of countries, ranging from Thailand and Vietnam to Cuba and Senegal, to join the BRICS. Against this backdrop, this conference will focus on the expansion of BRICS and its ramifications for the evolving world order. According to proponents of expansion, an expanded BRICS Plus can become a potent and effective platform for emerging and middle powers to advance their aspirations and push for changes in the West-dominated global system to project their interest. On the other hand, many countries are concerned that the potential inclusion of diverse countries will complicate consensus building and decision making, thereby reducing efficacy and cohesion of the grouping. In this conference today, we'll explore the possible future trajectory of BRICS, what an expanded BRICS 2.0 will look like. There are many speculations. Will it become a parallel G20 of the global South, or will it become an unwieldy organization like G77, or will it end up becoming a coalition of emerging powers and developing countries, probably capping at 30? There are no clear answers as of now to these questions. Even as we speak, Sherpas and Sous-Sherpas of BRICS countries are negotiating the final document. A Russian ambassador's speech will provide some clues, but we'll have a more concrete picture only at the Kazan Summit on October 22-24. The seminar will also explore the following sub-themes: role of BRICS in promoting global governance reforms, including reform and expansion of the UN Security Council, and intra-BRICS trade and investment, and use of national currencies. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, for me, hosting this conference has a special personal resonance. I was there at Ekaterinburg in 2009 when the first BRIC summit was held. S was missing. It was only 4 countries then: Brazil, Russia, India, and China. I remember the excitement and confusion at that time. Some hailed it as a new beginning in reinventing the world order. The skeptics, on the other hand, dubbed it as an alphabet soup. Next year, in 2010, South Africa was added, making the grouping BRICS. And last year at the Johannesburg Summit, 5 members were added. And now in the beautiful city of Kazan, at least 10 countries are expected to be added as partner countries, paving the way for their induction at the next summit in 2025. So with these few words as a backdrop, let me just outline some house rules for the discussion. This webinar is being live streamed on our YouTube and Facebook channels. Those who are attending and logged in YouTube and Facebook can ask questions and type it there, or they can send us to editor@indiarights.org. Now, I need to announce that Russian ambassador to India, His Excellency Denis Aleppo, was expected to be here virtually at least here to speak to us. But due to some urgent meetings, he had to excuse himself. But he has sent a recorded message, a video recorded speech, which our team will play it now. Anil, can you play it on? Speech by Ambassador. Anil?
Dear friends, greetings to all of you. My words of appreciation to Shri Manish Chand, Chief Executive Officer and Director of the Center for Global India Insights, for having us today and for organizing today's platform, and for giving the opportunity to exchange the views on the BRICS on the threshold of the 16th annual summit that will take place shortly in Russia, in Kazan, starting October 22nd. We look forward to welcoming Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, and around 40 other heads of states and prominent leaders to participate in regular and outreach BRICS Plus sessions. The motto of the Russian presidency and the forthcoming summit is the strengthening multilateralism for equitable global development and security. I would like to particularly welcome the new South African High Commissioner to India, Dr. Anil Sooklal, who has by virtue been the longest serving BRICS Sherpa and whose expertise in BRICS is undisputed. BRICS is a multi-dimensional phenomenon. It has become an influential platform for developing and emerging economies to take forward a rich agenda and to promote democratization of the global governance reflective of our growing influence. It offers a diversified, inclusive, and consensus-based cooperation within more than 80 sectoral tracks structured into the three baskets: policy and security, economy and finance, and humanitarian and cultural ties. BRICS respects civilizational diversity and offers the platform to a mutually beneficial dialogue, free from pressure, free from double standards or interference in domestic affairs. No wonder that a large number of countries has expressed interest in joining, and we see it natural for the BRICS to expand in one way or another. After our membership has doubled last year, which is itself a landmark, we move towards the establishment of a partner country category to enable interested states to join our practical cooperation. We think we must satisfy their expectations that would consolidate BRICS and its potential as a dedicated mechanism to promote the agenda of the global South. I would not prejudge who exactly is going to be invited as a partner country and what are the criteria, but certainly those states should be economically ambitious and should oppose illegitimate sanctions against member states. I presume we are all against the phantom itching for dictate and restricting cooperation with other nations. The case in point is that geopolitical and practical relevance of the BRICS is growing, not only despite uncertainties, but because of them, reflecting the demand for a more equitable cooperation in a multipolar environment. Around 200 events have already taken place under the Russian presidency this year as a testimony that the expanded BRICS has succeeded. Our main focus was to ensure a smooth adaptation of new members to the BRICS culture and traditions and the overall ecosystem. With new members, BRICS represents over 30% of the world's land area, 45% of the population, 40% of oil production, up to 25% of exports. The combined GDP of the BRICS nations has long surpassed that of the G7. One of the biggest values has been the sincere dedication to find amicable solutions and a common ground when it comes to difficult issues. We highly appreciate the support of our presidency in this regard. Much welcomed was the participation of Lok Sabha Speaker Honorable Om Birla in the BRICS Parliamentary Forum in July in St. Petersburg, and the participation of other high Indian officials in various meetings, regular involvement of the National Security Advisor Shri Ajit Doval in the BRICS high-level meetings on security matters is always critically important. We have conducted ministerial meetings on foreign affairs, education, environment, agriculture, sports, tourism, transport, and space. Exciting and future-oriented were the newly launched Nuclear Medicine Working Group, Academic, Ocean and Polar Science Fora, Fire Drills, Film Festival, Sports Games. We have held meetings on counterterrorism, intellectual property and standardization, industry, customs, climate change, policy planning, nanotechnologies, SME support, energy transition tracks, youth summit, as well as women, digital business and fashion fora, and the cultural festival, and many other. Pursuing the goals of sustainable economic development, we concentrate on expanding the new development bank-sponsored infrastructure projects, currently exceeding 35 billion USD. We are coherently moving towards creating reliable payment mechanisms through the use of national currencies, as well as through the dialogue on digital currencies as priority area. A need of the hour is to have an alternative to the SWIFT system in order to make our transactions independent and uninterrupted, to promote deeper integration of our national financial systems. As like-minded countries, we closely coordinate on various international issues, primarily on the G20 agenda, to ensure that the developing nations are getting an equal access to technological, financial, and natural resources in order to remove development gaps and achieve sustainable development goals. Consecutive presidency of BRICS members, India, Brazil, and South Africa in this global forum is critical for fulfilling the needs and aspirations of the developing world. As was reiterated by President Putin, the main task of the Russian chairmanship in BRICS is to create favorable conditions for all participants to efficiently use our economic, investment and technological and human resources potential for the best of interests of our nations, and at the same time to strengthen a constructive contribution of the BRICS to make the world more secure and harmonious. Thank you very much.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Yes.
There we can.
Yes. Thank you so much for that overarching big picture view. And, your ambassador has set the stage, and Deputy Chief of Mission Roman Babushkin will be there later to take any questions connected to Russian presidency. Uh, some of the things he said about expansion and the criteria for expansion, we will discuss as we go along. Now, my pleasure and honor to invite South Africa's High Commissioner designate, Professor Anil Sooklal. He is South Africa's first Indian origin High Commissioner to India. Former academic, Professor Sooklal has had a distinguished career in diplomacy, holding several senior positions in joining the Department of International Relations and Cooperation in 1995. He has served as Ambassador at Large to Asia and BRICS, Deputy Director General for Asia and Middle East, and South Africa's Ambassador to the EU. For the purpose of today's discussion, as the Ambassador emphasized in his speech, he is probably one of the longest serving Sherpas. So he knows the process, he knows it from inside, he's an insider, he brings a wealth of expertise to this discussion. With these words, I invite His Excellency Anil Sooklal to address two questions in his initial remarks. Number first, what challenges do you see? We don't know how the expansion is going to unfold, but with 10 more members being added, what challenges do you see in integrating these new members into the existing BRICS framework? And do you think it will dilute the cohesiveness of the grouping? That's number one. And the second is, the South Africa has been a very strong advocate for, an inclusive BRICS, and also for promoting African resurgence and renaissance through BRICS. What is your response to that? You have around 8 to 10 minutes to address this question. Over to you, His Excellency.
Thank you, Manish, first of all, for convening this very appropriate discussion. And my greetings to all my colleagues, some of whom I've had the privilege of working alongside with over the years. And many thanks for the kind words of welcome from all of you upon me being my tenure here as High Commissioner. I'm still designate, not yet High Commissioner, but it's such a privilege to be in India and a great privilege to be a fellow BRICS country representing South Africa. I think it's important for us to note, and I said this at the first Sherpa meeting earlier this year in Moscow, that Russia was so much part of the founding of the BRICS family, and hosted the first summit, as you rightfully pointed out, Manish, way back in 2009, and there were mixed reactions to the convening of the first summit and where this configuration will go. Now we're back in Russia in 2024, a very vastly changed global landscape, and even more complex than last year when South Africa held the presidency of BRICS. Now, if I can go back a few.
What the hell is happening here? What is happening? Where is it gone now? अच्छा, okay. एक मिनट रुक जाइए. Okay, he should be here shortly. I think there's a bit of technical snag at his end, some internet issue.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think
Sorry.
I lost connection a bit. My apologies. So I was saying that last year the focus was largely on expansion, but we addressed the issue of expansion last year, which I thought was done quite effectively. There was such a large number of countries wanting to become full BRICS members. But as the summit of 2022 took a decision that we should examine the criteria and come up with rules and guiding principles for expansion, which we did. And that was possible then to bring in the new members. And we invited, as you know, 6 members to become part of the BRICS family at the summit in Johannesburg last year. 4 of them formally joined. Well, actually, 5 joined. Argentina did write formally to join and become a full member, but they withdrew the membership. And Saudi Arabia was invited to join, but has yet to take a decision on it. But we now have an expanded BRICS. It's with 9 members. And while South Africa, I think, had the easier task of dealing with expansion, Russia this year had to deal with an expanded BRICS. For the first time, we had the Sherpa meeting in January with 9 member states in attendance. That changed, of course, the very nature of BRICS cooperation, because there were 5 of us that were well schooled in the way BRICS function, and we had now the 4 new members that had to adjust to the way BRICS conduct its business and function. Now, I think at this summit, there were 2 questions that were left out, that were left to the summit this year by our leaders that required attention. Paragraph 45 specifically spoke to tasking our finance ministers and our central bank governors to consider the issue of local currency, payment instruments, and platforms, and to report back at this summit. So I think that's going to be a major development, to see what our finance ministers or central governor, bank governor, whoever dealt with the issue, will report in terms of recommendations around payment instruments and platforms. I'll come back to that in a short while. The second major issue was where they tasked foreign ministers to further develop the BRICS partner country model and to come up with a list of prospective partner countries and report by the next summit. So this will be the other major issue that leaders will have to consider, and I'm sure Sherpas are busy with this as they are in negotiations at the moment. Now, the question you raised about challenges with an expanded BRICS, I think I've alluded to the fact that the 5 of us have been functioning over the past 15 summits, and we have developed a protocol in terms of how we conduct ourselves. It's a consensus-based organization, and by and large, we have divided BRICS into 3 pillars, and our work is arranged around these 3 pillars: the political, security, economic, finance, and social and people-to-people pillars. And a 4th unseen pillar is a continuous process of looking at strengthening, institutional strengthening and coordination mechanisms of BRICS. Now, if you have to look at the current environment, we didn't have the complexity of the Gaza situation last year when we chaired BRICS. And I think that under the political and security pillar will receive attention by our leaders. I'm sure when our NSA representatives met, and they will provide a report as is mandatory at BRICS Summit in terms of their discussion in the closed meeting to the leaders. I'm sure they're going to comment on all the major geopolitical issues, both regionally and internationally, as well as the security challenges as it impacts on all of us and the recommendations that will come out of that. Now, one of the challenges that already emerged, as is traditional on the margins of UNGA, the BRICS foreign ministers traditionally meet, and we have an outcome document, a media statement, as we call it. Now, for the first time, we were not able to issue a media statement following the foreign ministers meeting in New York because they could not reach consensus. And this again demonstrates that as we expand, the issue of consensus become even more difficult because of a more divergent viewpoints on critical global issues that impacts on us, impacts on our national security, and it becomes difficult to compromise on some of these. Now, of course, I'm sure that we will have a summit outcome document. That is the tradition in BRICS. And we always were able, no matter how far apart we may have been on issues, we were always able to reach consensus. And I'm confident under Russia's able leadership and under President Putin's able leadership, we'll have a very good, substantive summit declaration. I have no doubt about that. Now, whether BRICS is being diluted as it expands, it depends what you mean by dilution. I actually think BRICS is not being diluted. BRICS is being strengthened because there was careful consideration in terms of the new members that we brought in as full members, the 4 full members. Now, this year, we are not bringing in full members. We are bringing in partner countries. For the first time, we're creating, if one may want to call it that, a 2-tier BRICS. Because you're going to have full members, the 9 members, and then you're going to have partner countries. But the modalities that needed to be finalized in terms of what would be the criteria in selecting the partner countries, and more importantly, what role will partner countries play? Will they be fully integrated in all the work streams? We have about 20 ministerial work streams and an innumerable number of expert groups meetings. Where do we bring them in? I think all of this is something that Sherpas were busy with. Whether that's will be finalized and adopted by the leaders, we'll have to wait and see at the summit. But I think it's important, in my view, the expansion of BRICS is actually a plus factor. It demonstrates that there is a great deal of, there is a great need in the global community for leadership, and that leadership is seen within BRICS. And that is why you have such a large number of countries, diverse countries, and increasingly you're seeing a few countries from the global north starting to knock the door of BRICS. And I think that's significant. Now, I know I'm running out of time, but very quickly to come to the question raised about the inclusion of Africa within BRICS. I think last year we had a major breakthrough where the African Union under India's presidency was made a full member of the G20. But BRICS has always been inclusive of Africa. As early as 2013, a year after we joined BRICS, when we hosted BRICS, we brought the concept of outreach and we invited the African leaders. And since then, Africa has been an integral part of the BRICS agenda. As you saw last year in the BRICS Plus and extended BRICS meeting, we had almost all of the African countries present, over 60 plus countries from the global south, and over almost 50 African countries were present. And I think you saw the endorsement from the African, not only the African Union, but the African continent, the number of leaders that attended and identified with the goals and values that BRICS stand for. So I think what you have today is, in this very complex global order that is fracturing even more by the day, the gel that is bringing countries together, especially the majority global south, 85% of the global population is BRICS. Now, if for a moment, imagine if there was no BRICS, if we did not have a BRICS configuration, who would take care of the issues pertaining to the developing world, the global south, and the continuous hegemony that we still experience from some quarters of the world? So BRICS is a positive force for change. It will continue to grow precisely because we are championing the very cause that all of us subscribe to in creating a more inclusive, fair, just global society. Thank you. Let me leave it there, Manish.
And your optimism about the future of BRICS and the expansion of BRICS. The expansion of BRICS is a plus factor, that BRICS will continue to be a positive force for change, and BRICS 2.0 will remain a dynamic force in international affairs. Now, let me move on to Ambassador Kanwal Sibal. He really needs no introduction. He is Chancellor, currently Chancellor of Jawaharlal Nehru University. He served as India's Foreign Secretary from July 2002 to November 2003. Throughout his career, he held important ambassadorial positions. He served as ambassador to Turkey, Egypt, France, and Russia. And beyond his diplomatic career, he has excelled in literature, philosophies. He earned titles like Grand Doctor of Philosophy and Full Professor. So he has a very eclectic range of interest, and he has been tracking Russia and BRICS for years. So Ambassador Sibal, my two questions to you are, number one, that what is an expanded BRICS Plus or BRICS 2.0 mean for India's interest? How will India navigate this expanded BRICS? And some also argue that, the inclusion of new members and all that contestation which is going on even as we speak now will intensify geopolitical rivalry within the grouping. Some say that China will get to set the agenda through new members. What is your take on this cluster of interrelated questions?
Well, I think the expansion of BRICS inherently is a positive thing because we are increasing the space for the global south to participate in discussions on multilateralism, but that is the theme of this summit in a few days, because we all know that multilateralism, which was always in trouble, has virtually collapsed. We have currently two very serious conflicts that are going on, one in Ukraine, the other in West Asia or the Middle East. And both have the potential of exploding into something much bigger. In the case of Ukraine, now the nuclear dimension has become relevant. And in the case of West Asia, a wider regional war can be visualized if there is no restraint put on the principal player in the current scenario, which is Israel and which is defying the United Nations and proceeding on its own agenda of making sure that its security is fully taken care of without thought to what the security challenges it may face in the future, because these things can never be decided definitively. Now, in the case of India, as I said, BRICS the expansion is a positive thing because we've always spoken for greater role of the developing countries in global governance. And this has been denied to us, to the global south in general, though some concessions have had to be made because power has shifted progressively from the west to the east for economic power, and in its wake, political influence, and of course, the military aspect also has become different with the rate and the kind of military power that it is acquiring. So, therefore, as I was mentioned at the G20, we work in favor of including the African Union in the G20. Again, with the idea that the agenda of the G20 should not be that of the priorities and interests of the G7 Council, but to reflect the wider interests of the developing of this organization. Similarly, in the case of BRICS, the expanded BRICS, we would focus on the needs and issues that are priorities for the countries. But is quite clear. Now, with some of the things that we are attempting to do quite rightly, we should also realize that going ahead will not be that easy. Because the entire system currently is weighted very heavily in favor of the West, which has traditionally dominated the global system. Today we have West is effectively in war with Russia and considers China as its principal adversary, and there are serious tensions in the Western Pacific. In other words, the fractures in the world have become deeper and more dangerous. Now, India is in a somewhat uncomfortable position because, unlike Russia and China, whose relations with the West, especially the United States, have either collapsed or are in a adversarial mode, our relations with the West, including the United States, are actually expanding because that meets our needs for the future. That doesn't mean that this will be at the cost of our relations, either or the global south, but nevertheless, we have to navigate in a manner that while the promotes a mutually beneficial agenda, it should not take the form of an anti-West agenda. But that will then fracture the world even more and will be a blow to multilateralism. The whole idea of multilateralism is to convince the West that they should reconcile themselves to the shifts in power and have more consultations and give more concessions to the interests and priorities of the rest of the world. But if against the West, then we will be in a more difficult situation multilaterally. Because the tendency then to BRICS, expanded BRICS would be to join hands together, take positions, which would invariably then be acting with this model. So our view of BRICS would be that we have a very positive agenda. We must push on that agenda. There are certain issues with regard to the governance of the rest of the global financial system, its use of sanctions, the role of the dollar, the hegemony of the dollar, the weaponization of the financial system by the United States. All these are very serious issues which affect our own interests going into the future. But we have to have a realistic basis on how to progress on these matters. There are definitely difficulties down the road because alternative to the SWIFT system or living in our national currency or having a virtual currency and all. These are extremely complex issues. And when you trade in national currencies, it is possible to do that in the case of Russia and China because their trade is roughly balanced. What China exports to Russia, Russia exports to China, and therefore they can deal with these transactions in the national currency. But when there is an imbalance where one country is exporting a lot but importing very little, as in the case of Russia, the surpluses have got stuck in India because of the sanctions problem, and we can't utilize the systems of payment that existed in the past, continue our trade, and we have to get around. The other, of course, is that even though you may trade in national currencies, but there has to be a reference point because the value of the currencies of our own national currency in relation to the dollar keeps changing. So the dollar invariably comes in as a reference point, which is why President Putin has talked about the gold becoming the reference point or commodities becoming the reference point. These might be positive ideas going ahead, but I don't think they get realized so quickly. And then again, and finally, I would say that, to my mind, the weakness is the India-China problem. Our relations are now very difficult, and difficult to foresee how we can develop them, how we can resolve the problems that we are facing. And since India, China, and Russia are the original founders of what was RIC and then became BRIC and then became BRICS, and the whole exercise is founded on the basis that China and Russia will work together. India and Russia will work together. India and the rest of the BRICS countries, whether members or partners, will work together. But India and China find it very difficult to work together because our geopolitical interests are clashing, right apart from our bilateral issues. Building a consensus on top issues on the table of BRICS is therefore not easy. Of course, we had BRICS summits and everything else, and India-China relations have been what they are. But if you are going to develop the agenda and deepen the agenda more seriously and give it teeth, then I think international relations within BRICS, especially between India and China, have to become more stable. And finally, we brought in Iran and UAE and Egypt, of course, Ethiopia. Now, what has happened is that the regional problems of these countries have become or will become part of the BRICS agenda. And then we have to take a position on these issues. Here again, from India's point of view, there's a bit of an awkwardness because our relations with Israel are good, though we deplore in many ways what Israel is doing in terms of disproportionate use of force and killing of civilians. But nevertheless, we have very different view of Israel than Iran has. Therefore, developing a consensus on the West Asia beyond formulations which sort of state the normal principles of interstate relations, that's not good enough. But to have a clear understanding of supporting each other, I think that will be a task that we will have to face. Finally, I think the idea of partner countries rather than members is a good thing. Even when selecting partner countries, excluding some and including some would create a bit of resentment. We know that last time Nigeria was not included and they were very resentful. They were wrong. So it's a halfway house. It's best not to have full members. It's a good compromise to have partner members. Even that will generate some why some have been included. One final word from my point of view. I'm not talking about the government of India's position. I don't represent India. I think we should be very clear on one thing, which is that any country which is a member of another military organization should not be joining BRICS, even as a partner country. But I have Turkey in mind. It's a NATO country, and if the whole idea of creating BRICS was to create a forum which was en bloc, then I think admitting a member as part of a military doesn't make any sense. But I think Russia would have a lot of interest in bringing Turkey in because of the nature of the relations, geopolitical situation. I don't know whether Turkey is in the list of 10 which you mentioned partner countries. But this is my personal thought, but I leave it.
Thank you, Ambassador Sibal, for that very acute insight into some of the issues animating the expansion, the challenges, and also your point about that, again, your optimism that the expanded BRICS can be leveraged creatively by India to increase space for Global South and for accelerating reform of global governance, which was the original inspiration behind setting up BRICS. Welcome, Nicolas. Welcome, Dr. Victoria Panova. We'll come to you. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharyya. Sanjay served as Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, where he managed key portfolios, including the Arab region, Israel, and diaspora affairs. But more pertinently for this discussion, Sanjay Bhattacharyya, Ambassador Bhattacharyya, served as India's BRICS Sherpa during India's BRICS presidency. He served as India's ambassador to Switzerland, Turkey, and Spain and Egypt. Of these two countries, one is already a member of BRICS, Egypt, and Turkey, as Ambassador Sibal said, the opinion is divided. We don't know how it will play out. So my two questions for you, Ambassador Bhattacharyya, is number one, that, as many new members of BRICS are from the Middle East, and probably there are going to be more, and Arab Africa as well. Does it mean greater focus of BRICS on crisis and conflicts in the Middle East? That's some sort of regionalization, where you have greater focus on one region more than the other. And second, briefly, what opportunities does BRICS expansion present for India's economic diplomacy? Trade and investment, promoting use of national currencies, payment mechanism, which is being worked out, some of these economic issues, which is like the real hardware of the emerging BRICS. Over to you, Ambassador Bhattacharyya. Sound. Can't hear. Anil, can you speak? Yeah. Now you're audible. Yes.
Manish, thank you very much for inviting me to this very timely seminar on the BRICS as we move towards the summit in a few days. And ministers already making arrangements for being in Kazan for what's going to be a very, very exciting BRICS moment. Best wishes to Russia, who've always managed to steer the BRICS movement very, very competently. And I heard very carefully about the comments that Ambassador Alipov made. I'm also particularly delighted to see my old friend Anil Sooklal on this forum. Great to see you here. And Foreign Secretary Ambassador Sibal, thanks for your comments. Manish, the kind of issues that you brought up, let me take up the first one, the second one first. BRICS was born in the 21st century as a grouping of emerging economies. Its key priority at the very early days was really to bring about the economic development and the linkages with the North or the OECD and others that did not exist. So that was, in a sense, leading to the global governance issues. And I think in many ways, the BRICS movement was so successful, although this was very less publicized, that it attracted the attention of many in the region. And after all, this was quite natural because the original BRICS members were not only middle powers, but the leading countries in their regions. And so what they did and what they could do was not only for themselves, but for the regions around them. And in a sense, I think from the very outset, they represented the regions. And this became more evident as the NDB, the BRICS Bank, so to say, began the process of expansion where many of the regional countries were brought in. And so economics, and as Ambassador Alipov had also mentioned, we have as many as about 20 sectoral working groups which work on different aspects of economic cooperation. We've seen how we have moved ahead on trade and investment, how we have worked on technology transfers, how we've been able to bring about collaborations between BRICS members on a diverse range of issues from industry to agriculture to health and so on. And this obviously gives it a certain vibrancy, and that has been the focus of many ways. But I think, as everyone else mentioned, the world became more complex, not least by the fact that conflict became a fact of life in different parts of the world. And so BRICS had to pay attention, both in the NSAs, the security advisors level, as well as when the foreign ministers would meet, and of course at the summit itself as well. And so the geopolitics of the world, of regional issues, became central. For India, right from the outset, I think this has been a great start for our economic diplomacy and our agenda. We have this understanding, which we had brought up during, Prime Minister Modi's presidency of BRICS a few years ago, when we brought this idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, of making the world as one family, in which we bring together the ideas of economic development, which is both inclusive and spread out to everybody. And that has given us the ability to take this forward. So today, what we have is, through the NDB, the finance that we have within the BRICS mechanism, we've now brought about structures which enable us to have trade in local currencies. We are working on a settlement mechanism which will actually further give leverage to this. The kind of currency reserve, when you have disaster situations, emergency situations, the currency reserve arrangements that we worked out, and this all add leverage to this. Further, I think because the multilateral system is a kind of coma, if I may say, the WTO is not making much headway, there is great possibility of individual BRICS countries or regions coming together for FTA kind of arrangements. India's already done one with the United Arab Emirates. We can do this with others, and so can others in the absence of the progress on the multilateral front. The other part of BRICS movement on the economic front is that we had advanced the idea of digital physical infrastructure, and these public goods that we've created actually provide the technological advantage to leapfrog the stages of development, to have a more transparent mechanism so that your distribution network becomes much more efficient. And this is something that has worked extremely well in India to bring about the inclusive growth that we have been working on. And it has attracted the attention of many, not just in the BRICS countries, but also in the other parts of the world. And they are now looking for this. So we could share this, but also at the same time, what the BRICS collaboration on the digital front would be is that many of our BRICS partners are actually at the cutting edge of the data systems, the data developments, digital movements, the new developments on artificial intelligence. And our collaboration in the digital space would give us the kind of flexibility and the ability to leverage our progress much further. Now, Manish, coming to the last question which you had raised initially about the Middle East and the issues over there. The BRICS movement has very seriously discussed regional and global issues, including those pertaining to peace and security. And in fact, we have a very robust mechanism for discussion on the Middle East issues at the deputy ministers level, which then provides its inputs to the summit itself. And so we have been discussing this for a very long period of time, and we have noticed how the incidence of violence, of fundamentalism, of terrorism has in some ways had some of the roots in this part of the region and has spread across, though it is not contained in this region and is in many other parts of the world as well. My understanding has been, until now, what we've done is that we have been studying this and having consultations, but we have not really waded deep into the conflict situations themselves. What we do expect in the future as well is that we would not do so in the future, because BRICS, while it focuses on economics and while it discusses the geopolitical issues, does not get into the nitty-gritty of those in terms of mediation or solutions, because those are far more may detract from the very core idea of what BRICS is trying to do. But it has another thing, because now so many of the countries in what is also known as the MENA region are now becoming more actively involved in the BRICS movement. What I do anticipate is that the kind of economic benefits, the kind of integration that is going to happen, the integration to supply and value chains that will happen, is that we will find a greater chance of stability and economic growth for meeting the aspirations of the people. And that would, in a sense, in a way, create the conditions that would provide a more stable and durable basis for peace and stability in the region, because that does have an impact not only on the region but beyond. Overall, I would conclude by saying that I'm very excited about the developments in BRICS. I am excited about the fact that BRICS is expanding and it is having this two-tier system. I am in consonance with Anil's assessment on this. I don't think it should become too unwieldy, because consensus, cooperation, which are at the heart of the BRICS movement, is something that we need to do and maintain in order to have efficacy in the delivery, so that it remains something that the other countries look forward to as well.
Thank you, Sanjay, for that very eloquent expression of optimism in the future of BRICS, the expanded BRICS, and what it can achieve, especially as a force for enhanced economic engagement, economic integration, and rejuvenation. In a way, it is like an expanded BRICS could serve as a platform for rejuvenating the economies of BRICS countries and the larger BRICS family. Now we move on to Dr. Victoria Panova. Dr. Victoria Panova is a seasoned diplomat who served, he is Provost for International Relations at Far Eastern Federal University, and she served as Scientific Supervisor of the BRICS Expert Council during BRICS chairmanship. Dr. Panova has led civil society initiatives like Civil BRICS and Access Russia's Women 20 Sherpa WT 20 Sherpa. Dr. Panova, I mean, we are talking about expansion and all that, but half the, as they say, half the sky. We're talking about women. What can BRICS do? This expanded BRICS to put greater focus on gender equality, women empowerment, and also how do you see? Because one of the things that has always intrigued me about BRICS is, even though it is a club of 5, about the civil society linkages are not very strong. Human people-to-people contacts. I mean, we need to understand each other's society, culture better. What is your take? I mean, especially, you see, for example, India G20 presidency had women empowerment as a very important theme. How do you see BRICS driving women empowerment issues, setting agenda on that? Over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for inviting me here. That's really great to see my colleagues and old friends, Your Excellency, Dr. Alipov, Professor Anil Sooklal, Your Excellency, gentlemen, really good to be here. And in fact, a small correction before I start. In fact, you are talking about my position 4 years ago.
Okay.
I'm now there, like similar position, but in Moscow, HSC University. And yes, I remain Women 20 Sherpa for Russia. And also there's a newly recreated expert council, which was created by the order of Prime Minister of Russia this year on a permanent basis. Because before I was heading the council that was just for a year of presidency, but it turned out to be a good experience, and that it is necessary to have team of people who are dedicated to, first of all, developing track to diplomacy, but also providing
Yes.
relevant and timely and valuable expertise for our governments and to provide for those connectivity. So with the questions you asked, not that I enjoyed very
हेलो
much when talking about women's issues,
नहीं
because
नहीं,
we
मेरा तो
talk
माइक ही
about
बंद
doing
है.
a lot more.
मैं कभी भी ऑन नहीं होता, ये इनका ऑन है.
Sorry.
Sure. And with BRICS, yes, Women 20 is a bit different. With BRICS, we have Women Business Alliance, and it's in a way like a part, or very autonomous part of the BRICS Business Council. And frankly, I don't see extra necessity in order to single out those issues separately and to make like women BRICS or create anything else. I can explain. Issues of women empowerment, they were part of the G20 main agenda for India. It's not something separate that women have to lead. We're talking not just about women, we're talking about women and men born equal, having equal opportunities, and going directions and paths they're choosing to, and having the right to do so. And we're not employing or undertaking any other discourse. And that is why whenever we talk in BRICS as a whole, in civil BRICS or in academic forum in the BRICS Think Tank Council, we're talking about general provision for human rights, economic rights of men and women. And this is important because we need to go for equality in opportunities, and then ability at the same time to choose your own path, to keep to your own traditions, your allegiance, and not break your personality. So this is vital that we don't introduce universal model. And in fact, and I think many speakers talked about it, because this is part of the core principle for BRICS. BRICS is not about following the Western model. It is not anti-West in any way, no. It is non-West. And it talks about its own needs, its own agendas and interests. And that is why we can be talking about it in complexity, in a comprehensive manner, because we do respect each other's differences, diversities. We respect each other's approaches, cultures, civilizational mindset. This is all there. And it's key for us that we work together on a principle of mutual understanding and mutual respect. And no universal model can be kind of pushed by anybody onto the BRICS members, be it the earlier 5 or the current expanded format. And in fact, I think this is what makes us much stronger, because while being different, we're not working, let's say, unlike G7. I don't like those comparisons, but I mean, it comes to mind because we don't work on a hierarchical model. Our leaders, and on every layer of negotiation of each track, it's a kind of a discussion of equals who come to consensus. It could be a difficult path. Some issues could be put aside because and it was already discussed here, because our interests are not identical, be it in economic area or be it, let's say, in regional security, etc. But what is important that the core principles, both in economic development, in equal and sustainable and fair development, we do share. And this is how we work. So it's key for BRICS. That is why we can allow ourselves to be discussing issues like this within official track, if needed. And of course, countries on a different path for providing for women's rights. We have the legacy of the Soviet Union, who was the pioneer in terms of introducing full equality legally to men and women. In fact, much earlier, before any Western country, with the voting rights or right to work. And this is important, that we're just sharing best practices, but not dictating that this or that model should be undertaken. But what we could be doing as women, and in fact, we're doing it informally since the inception of the Women 20 format, we do some informal consultations within their Women 20, because it is true that our partners from the other side, from the West, they are always very consolidated and they do follow one line. And so you need to have extra strength, and you need friends in order to be able to stick to your points. Sometimes it could be difficult. That's why we do informal consultations like that. That's on women. With regards to civil society, thank you for reminding that. Yes, we did it. We started it in Russia like in 2015 at their two presidencies before, two chairships before. And that's another, by the way, distinct feature for BRICS. BRICS is extremely open to dialogue, not only between countries, but also within countries. Because I've been looking at club formats since the inception. Over 20 years, I have experience in research in that. And with their G7, at some point G8, it took 25, 30 years to acknowledge that civil society matters and that you have to talk to them. Because at the beginning, it was kind of, the meetings were all closed, just some short notice in newspapers. Then civil society, wanting to know more about what's happening behind the doors, started different movements, including anti-globalist movements, so there were problems. And only then, in fact, when Russia was inside, and when it was Russia's chairship in 2006, we started the civil process. It was the first time that we gathered civil society from G8 plus countries, about 1,000 people altogether, and talking to Vladimir Putin. And it was very open and frank discussion. And we had the possibility and ability to tell our needs, not only to him, but also to all their Sherpas. That was first time. And in fact, when it was next Germany's chairship, participants of our year said that they were not expecting that our process would be so much more democratic and open, because it started being restricted after that. So, and that is like in BRICS, while there could be different discourse with regards to us as members by other countries, but we are open. And I know that our government is open. I know your government is open to such consultations. And we have very productive discussions both with RIS, with ORF, who are seen as focal points for those tracks, but there are also other institutions involved. And I know that this year, they and a group of civil society activists from BRICS, they started a civil BRICS council in order to kind of to ensure that it remains a process always on the agenda. We know that during Brazilian chairship, sometimes this aspect is lost for some reason. And next one would be Brazil. So there is a real strive, and I think we're heard that this has to continue. And we had this ability to offer our recommendations, and in fact to see what we need inside the leaders' discussion. And I think this is extremely important because if BRICS is not exclusive, it is inclusive club from outside and from inside. It is difficult on the one hand to agree because we're very diverse. So the more countries, the more laborious and continuous process it is of negotiations. But at the same time, it gives us extra skills that are not lost with any of the BRICS countries. In fact, unlike some others, we have this culture of negotiation, and we know how to respectfully agree to the issues that we could have different approaches to. But the same applies, and that's why we are talking about further expansion, or let's say different format to ensure efficiency, because the circle of partners, we cannot just leave it unnoticed, unresponded. We are talking about ourselves as a defender of interest or vanguard, or I prefer the word core of global South and East, global majority. You can use any term. But we need to not just to be within our small pot. And that is why we're open to discussion with other countries and to expansion as it is, albeit there could be, for the sake of efficiency and the group, we need to be looking into formats that would ensure that it stays relevant. But the same applies to the insight. We have very, very rich network of different track to diplomacy events. And in fact, each of them enriches the official process a lot. And this is also key to us, because this way we can be finding, it's a very difficult moment now, geopolitical tensions. But I believe because of this specificity, because of this openness, because of this design ability to listen, inside, outside, BRICS is the only institution or mechanism, because it's not an organization, that could be offering an alternative of the new, fairer world that is so much weighted and aspired for by the developing countries. And we cannot fail them, because we need to keep up. Thank you so much. You're muted.
Thank you so much for your remarks, and your especially couple of points, very important points you made, which is the BRICS is non-West, not anti-West. And that's a very important, and more countries, more skills. But more importantly, when we talk about the expansion, BRICS is offering an alternative vision of a fairer world. I think that's well taken. We will now move to our, thank you. We'll now move to our next speaker, Nicolas. Some problem. Hello. Yeah, so we now move to our next speaker, Nicolas Buchoud. He is co-founder and president of the Grand Paris Alliance for Metropolitan Development, a think tank focused on sustainable urban planning. He is also a fellow of Global Solutions Initiative. He coaches T20 Task Force on Urban Infrastructure Investment. With his background, this is also an important part of BRICS, and this was a very prominent part of the agenda, at least in the earlier years. What can BRICS do to promote sustainable infrastructure development? And my second question to you is, now that we'll have an expanded BRICS, where do you see convergence between BRICS and G20? Nicolas has worked a lot on G20, so that would be an important perspective. You have around 6, 7, 8 minutes to offer your take. Over to you, Nicolas.
Manish, thank you very much. I hope the sound is okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. I will try to be even shorter because we have been listening to such fantastic and great insights from high-level speakers, and then I feel very humbled. But you forgot to mention that I have also been appointed as a senior fellow at RIS in Delhi, right?
Yeah.
So I feel also, I feel also part somehow of the BRICS.
You wear many hats, Yes, very much.
Think tanks family. I have just very few remarks. The first one, also listening to our previous colleague, I think the issue of culture and cultural exchange and cultural interchange across the BRICS and across the new countries that might be new members or new partners across the BRICS is something that should not be undervalued. On the contrary, it is an extremely important resource. And we were together just a few days ago in Tashkent in Central Asia for the fourth World Conference on Creative Economy. And there were nearly all the BRICS and future BRICS partner countries represented, and we could feel how productive it is to be able to discuss about such issues in an open context. So that's the first remark. The second remark about your very question about infrastructure systems and investments into infrastructure. Indeed, I have been lucky to be co-chairing the T20 task force on those issues in the G20 over the past 7 years, and including this year in Brazil, which is included in the climate issues. Here, I think there is a before and an after of the COVID-19 crisis. And before the COVID-19 crisis, 2018, 2019, even 2020 somehow, the approach in the G20 about promoting investments into both physical and digital infrastructure, including also energy systems, was very global and was about how to support and sustain growth. And then it became also how to support sustainable growth in light of mounting issues linked with excessive CO2 emissions and environmental transformations that are detrimental for us as humans. And then there was the COVID. And then after the COVID, suddenly we rediscovered somehow that there were different approaches to promoting infrastructure systems, including across the G20, be it the Belt and Road Initiative and its kind of second generation from China, be it the Partnership for Global Infrastructure Initiatives, and be it other ways to look at infrastructure systems. I think the context of now, the issue of infrastructure does not escape the kind of fragmented geoeconomics or geopolitics that were described by the previous speakers. And hence, this makes the issue of how to continue cooperating, dialoguing, especially among think tanks within the G20 with the BRICS and a number of organizations. They are the same, whether we think about India or South Africa next year or Brazil this year. There is here a kind of imperative that the quality of the exchange and discussions among think tanks about the positive and negative spillover of infrastructure systems, about the definition of future infrastructure systems, is being constantly assessed and reassessed, not just within different, I would say, economic systems or geopolitical spheres, but across them. And then the third remark that I would like to share today, and thank you again, Manish, for giving me the opportunity to speak here, would be about what for, in the sense that we could see this year with the adoption of the Pact of the Future at the United Nations, that nearly 30% or 35% of the countries which are affiliated to the UN did not approve the Pact for the Future, either by not voting, by voting against, or by abstention. And last year, we could see that somehow a similar pattern was at play with the assessment of the SDGs. And next year, there will be two important meetings about development finance. That would be before summer in Spain, and about the second World Summit on Development, which is due to take place in Qatar in November. So the thinking is how together across the different, I would say, political or policy spaces which are emerging or which are being affirmed, we can continue to discuss, not to forget about a couple of global goals that do not belong to any specific region of the world, but which are kind of common goods or public goods for all of humanity. And here, I think issues of infrastructure systems as expressions of course, of global trade issues, supply chain issues, but also production and consumption systems could be part of this global approach, or a multilateral or across different geoeconomic spheres approach to thinking about where we will be in 2030 with the 2030 agenda, and how to build the next steps of the aftermath of 2030. And I have great hopes that within the extraordinary momentum within the BRICS, very strong new ideas might come up, right? Not just looking into the mirror and saying we need to apply the same recipes that have prevailed in the past 30 years, especially after the end of the Cold War, but looking at new reservoirs of sources of investments, culturally sensitive investments, but also investments that would make sense in the context that has been described by the previous speakers. And because you kindly underlined also the small experience I've gathered over the years working especially in India or in China or in the Russian Federation and elsewhere about urban transformations and urban issues, of course, that should be part of the equation. And this might be right now the opportunity to overcome a little bit the rationale of global urbanization as we have known it in the past few years or in the past 30 years, and craft something different. So this would be, dear Manish, my few remarks.
And what exactly is happening? Okay, now we move on to the last speaker, Dipanjan Roy Chaudhury. Last but not the least, is diplomatic editor at the Economic Times. He's been covering foreign affairs, international relations for many, many years. And he has covered many multilateral summits, including BRICS. Previously, he was program director at Aspen India Institute, worked with Made Today, Kuwait Youth Agency, and many other organizations. more importantly, Dipanjan is the one who is right there on the ground in many ways. He will be traveling to Kazan. I will also be there at the summit in Kazan. So, Dipanjan, my question to you is this: that how do you look at these? What is the buzz you are hearing about the expansion as a journalist writing, chronicling, and reporting every day? What is the buzz? Do you think there is enthusiasm about expansion? Also, how is the West looking at it? Is the West uncomfortable with this expanded BRICS? Number one. Number two, you may like to also focus on uh, does this expansion work for India? As in, uh, these are friendly countries. Most of these countries, we have excellent relations with it. Almost all of them, I would say. So over to you, Dipanjan. Are you there? Can you? Hello? Hello? Dipanjan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there, very much there.
Yeah, he's coming. Yeah. You heard the questions?
No, can you repeat? I think it got...
Yeah. Oh, okay. There was some issue. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Dipanjan, basically, my question is that as you're covering this on a day-to-day basis also, and you will be in Kazan for the summit, and what is the buzz you hear about the expansion? I mean, what do others have to say? Also, is there an unease among the Western countries, the West, about this expansion? And what is your view about the new members? Do they, or members which are expected to be in the new expanded BRICS, does it work for India? I mean, they are friendly countries mostly, but what is your take overall?
Yeah, I guess the buzz about BRICS in Indian media is very limited, in my opinions. Generally it only revolves around the summit whenever the summit happens, and because it's not in India, so the buzz is limited. Like the buzz about G20 is limited because it's being held in a faraway country in Brazil. So the buzz about this is limited. Also, I feel that many journalists or columnists have not, of late, focused on BRICS in the last, say, 5 years in the post-COVID period. While there has been a move to make BRICS a more cohesive organization, and unfortunately the percentage of space devoted in media to BRICS has reduced in India. I mean, there could be a multiplicity of reasons because of India's unease with one of the founding members. There are bilateral irritants or differences in one of the relationships, so it may have overshadowed. But nonetheless, I think there is a lot of curiosity about the BRICS partner mechanism, as we would call it. And this would, in my understanding, this would be essentially a partner mechanism for the time being, and which will also be discussed in the next summit. It may not translate immediately into membership, and it might take few years, may not take few years, depending on the dynamics. But definitely, I have noticed over the last 1 year a lot of interest in BRICS from various countries, particularly in Southeast Asia, from where I think there is a maximum push to become a BRICS partner. This includes Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia. Indonesia is also present in the BRICS outreach. I think the new Indonesian foreign minister is traveling, which shows the interest, because new Indonesian president will only be sworn in on Sunday, and his foreign minister is the floor aide of the president. I'll be traveling within 2 days to Kazan, which is not very close to, geographically not very close to, Indonesia. I think that there is a growing interest.
Yeah.
There's a growing interest in Africa and Latin America. And one interesting I found is Morocco. I mean, because Algeria is interested, maybe Morocco is also showing interest to be part of, or at least take part in this deliberation, because Algeria is an old partner of Soviet Union and Russia. Algeria, India, Algeria also relations are good. India-Morocco relations have also improved over the years. So Morocco has shown some interest, and this, in my opinion, is interesting. And from an Indian viewpoint, I think this is a platform which takes forward India's agenda for Global South. We have had 3 Voice of the Global South Summit, and this takes forward the BRICS would provide, and this would become a platform for the Global South, because the major criteria for BRICS is emerging economies, and I believe it's not just emerging economies; it's also the middle powers. Indonesia, Kazakhstan, Turkey, Algeria, Morocco, Nigeria. Colombia. I mean, Colombia was interested to come. I'm not too sure what is the status of Colombia as of now, but whether they are invited or not. So there are a lot of middle powers, there are aspirational powers, who for some reasons, some of them became members of the UN only in the 90s. Some have been members in the UN for many, many years, who for many reasons have not got the voice in other platforms, established platforms. That's A. And B, I went by saying that, referring to Mr. Alipop's speech and Mr. Sanjay Bhattacharyya and others, and reference by Dr. Bhattacharyya Panova, is the attraction of the BRICS Bank. I think the BRICS Bank, New Development Bank, is something which is attractive, because lending from other financial institutions may not be easy, and sometimes there are conditions attached to the BRICS Bank that way. But one has to see the capital of the BRICS Bank for future projects. And I would completely agree with Dr. Panova that BRICS is not against anyone. It is not anti-West. It is rather providing a platform for many countries, which may actually influence other formations to probably do some course correction in terms of attracting many middle powers. We are actually in the era of multipolarity. Many countries, of course, may not have their currency as the global currency, but it's an era of multipolarity where middle powers want to make their presence felt, and BRICS provide that platform in the coming years.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Dipanjan. I think very realistic take on where BRICS is heading and what does the addition of new members mean for the grouping as well as for India. So with this, we complete the round where speakers had made their presentations, a remarkable presentation, very insightful. We have some questions now for the speakers. In the interest of time, we will take maybe 3 or 4 of them. Are all speakers here? Ambassador, Mr. Babushkin, are you there?
Very much.
Hello. Oh, you're very much there. Okay. So there is a question for you from, let me read out to you. One is from Elena, journalist from TARS, about can BRICS initiate a peace plan on Ukraine? And this question is also addressed to can BRICS, the summit in Kazan, or BRICS as such, can they come out with a peace plan on the Ukraine crisis, conflict? And this question is also addressed to Professor Anil Sooklal, that what role can BRICS play as a peacemaker in conflicts, not just Ukraine, but Gaza? So these are the 2 questions. Over to you, Mr. Babushkin.
Thank you very much, Manish. And I'm really honored to be part of this prominent gathering. And um, all of the speakers were, to some extent, very close to us. Either I was, working in as the Russia BRICS team at some point of time with the Honorable Dr. Sooklal as, prominent BRICS Sherpa of South Africa, or His Excellency Mr. Sanjay Bhattacharyya as BRICS Sherpa. And I'm really, it's really a privilege. And it's a privilege to have Ambassador Sooklal here in Delhi as well. Welcome here, Your Excellency. So looking forward to closer interaction with you here as well. BRICS, what is the big and very positive thing about BRICS is everything which has been mentioned during today's very interesting deliberations and forward-looking visions of how we see BRICS and how it works and what are the options. All of them are true, because we don't have it's not a structured organization. So this is an intergovernmental forum which provides a platform for exchange of opinions and find a common ground on what we are interested to do together. It's about a matter of a goodwill, and it's about a matter of how we move towards so many tracks of our practical interaction, because it's not only about some consensus on critical issues like the United Nations Security Council expansion or something. So along with that, we have more than 70 tracks of practical cooperation, which also moves on irrespective of whether we agree on some things or not. So, but again, that makes BRICS even stronger. And I do agree with Dr. Victoria, because that makes it very powerful and even more efficient structure than a formal organization. Because we do whatever we agree upon. And if not, of course, we keep working on that, so that to find a solution. It's a big value. It's a big value, and the common goodwill to achieve the consensus. As far as the global issues is concerned, of course, BRICS as a global body, it deals with everything, and certainly it's a good platform to discuss any issue. And along with that, all the major global challenges, including the regional crisis, including the conflict in Ukraine, as well, will be very much part of the agenda. But it doesn't mean that we should have some expectations that we together would work out some real peace plan for the settlement, because we truly believe that it is very valuable that we have an opportunity to listen to each other and to take note and to probably deliberate on that, and take best of the offers which are being expressed at this well-reputed platform. However, in order for any peace plan to work, it is necessary to have the two sides on board, because what we witness throughout the recent years of the Ukrainian crisis, because it started not in just 2022, it started much earlier. What we have started in 2022, it's a special military operation designed to end this conflict. So, but when we started this special military operation, we were very close to the solution, and negotiations were almost over as early as in April 2022, until Boris Johnson came to Kyiv and told the Ukrainians to stop talking to Russians. So after that, they have worked out the so-called peace formula by Zelensky, which doesn't accept any kind of a compromise with others. It represents just an ultimatum against Russia without any take of a realistic situation. and whatever peace plans were already offered to Ukrainians, like the African countries were, were working on something. Then the Chinese and Brazilian proposals were also on the table. All of them were rejected. On the other side, they have conducted the Switzerland Peace Conference without inviting Russia or without taking into account the Russian interests and concerns, which made this peace conference just a sort of um, just imitation of the peace process. At the same time, they have chosen the way of escalation of the crisis while keeping supplying weapons to Ukraine and projecting another peace formula, which is again just a set of the unrealistic ultimatums, and actually they are just selling the sovereignty of the country. We cannot talk to Ukrainians because they don't belong to themselves, because this is a puppet government, and until there is a more common ground between the major players which are around this Ukrainian crisis, we are unable to move towards the lasting solution. So, of course, it is a big value and a big opportunity to listen to other leaders which are who are present at the BRICS Summit, either in the BRICS format or the BRICS Plus or outreach, so that you could really exchange the opinions. But the big value is that the majority of those countries who will be present at the BRICS Summit will speak almost in one voice, referring to the need of all of the participants of the conflict to be at the table, and without mutual goodwill between them, there is not much point to produce any peace formula which will be rejected. You're almost sure about that. So I would like to especially highlight the importance of the Indian balanced position, since we are dealing with the Indian side here in Delhi, and must appreciate its balanced view, its neutral position. And this is a big contribution to the understanding of the global community, and to those who are trying to impose any kind of ultimatums, that it will not go through. So, and with this understanding in mind, of course, we will move towards the strengthening the common vision and common voice among the BRICS countries and global South countries, since we also can say that BRICS is becoming an important and efficient mechanism of promoting the interests of the global South countries. That when talking about peace, it's very easy to just say to start any peace initiatives like the peace should prevail. That's okay. That peace should prevail, but how? So that's the major point. So it's not as easy as it looks. So well, and as we see, even those countries who are involved in this conflict directly from other side are not able to do so, or not willing to do so.
To in crisis like, can you hear me now?
Yes, now.
Yeah. What can, thank you, Mr. Babushkin, for your excellent, realistic take on what role can the BRICS play. Coming to Professor Sooklal, the same question, but with slight improvisation. What can BRICS, the expanded BRICS, do with its increased clout to in conflicts like Russia, Ukraine, or in Gaza? Very briefly, 2-3 minutes, please.
I think it's a very important point to note. If you look at all BRICS, from the very first to the most recent summit, and I'm sure this Kazan the same. BRICS leaders never indulged in finger pointing and trying to portion blame to any country vis-a-vis or global. You'll never see that in declarations, unlike G7 declaration. And even this crept into the G20 declaration, where countries were fingered and blame apportioned in terms of what's happening on the global scene of the conflict. And I think that's a very important point to recognize that BRICS, if you look at BRICS Summit declaration, it always speaks, when addressing global peace and security issues, it speaks of peaceful resolution of these conflicts through negotiations without pointing fingers. And I think that's the basic principle that underlies cooperation BRICS amongst ourselves, but what we'd like to see in the larger community. Now, coming specifically to the situation in West Asia, none of the BRICS countries are, both the Ukraine situation and Western Asia situation, suppliers of arms and finance to fuel. We are not fueling as the BRICS community. So it is BRICS that has to speak of finding a peaceful, sustainable solution to the conflict in Gaza, to the situation in Ukraine. But our partners are not interested in that. And the double standards that we are constantly trying to address vis-a-vis the UN Charter, its purposes and principles, and the security that wantonly violated by some countries without any repercussion. The unjust sanctions, unilateral sanctions that is imposed, this is not by any BRICS countries. And these are challenges that have to be addressed when one side of the global community is calling for peace, is calling for a resolution of the, while the other are not interested at all in bringing about a peaceful resolution. Be it the situation is not about Russia and Ukraine. We all know this. And this situation in Gaza. It is, I think it must be seen within the larger context of power contest. It must be seen within the larger context of a new global order and that is unfolding, that is being imposed because a certain group of countries that dominate the global agenda, the global political and security situation, global economy, the global finance, they don't want to make new partners that are of the global south. And I think all of these conflicts must be seen within this larger context of what is happening on the platform, and it cannot be relation. And BRICS has to find a major force to push for respect of multilateral architecture, strength and reinforce multilateralism, system, and calling for a transformation of the Bretton Woods institutions, the very architecture, way the UN is designed, will be next year celebrating 80 years of the founding of the UN. But the UN is still caught up in 45 when the world has changed so dramatically. This is what BRICS is about, in taking the lead in crafting a more inclusive global architecture, financially, political.
Thank you. Sanjay, there is a question for you about, just very briefly, 1 minute, 2 minutes, and we'll wind up. We've been there for now almost 100 minutes, more than that. So essentially, this question from Karthikeya Garg, Center for Global India Insights. The BRICS has also opened the possibility of development finance, enhanced development finance for developing countries, where the Bretton Woods institutions failed them, What is your view? I mean, is a new development bank catering to the needs of developing countries for the finance infrastructure finance, project finance, freed of conditionalities we have seen in the case of Bretton Woods institution. 2 minutes, please. No. We can't hear you. Anil,
Which is,
yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I see BRICS as an organization which promotes development, which promotes equity. And in that particular effort, it moves towards global governance, which is more just and equitable. BRICS alone cannot change global governance. But if it can create the situations where the economic conditions of its own citizens, and not only of its own citizens, but citizens of the neighboring regions, who are also part of the global south, can be improved, that's a significant benefit that BRICS can actually transfer to humanity. That the role of the NDB has been very, very central. Because right from the outset, NDB was not just for BRICS countries. It was for BRICS Plus. It was its projects and its funding was available to a range of countries outside. And many of the projects were actually in non-BRICS countries. So that's the way that you can share your idea of how you can bring about a common future for the world together. I think the Bretton Woods concept, I would not say they've failed, but I think they haven't matched up to the expectations. And I think they need reform. We should continue to plug them. I don't think BRICS is rejecting the multilateral system. And what BRICS is saying is that the multilateral system today is inadequate for the requirements of our times, for the aspirations of our citizens, and therefore it needs reform. And in that context, if the reform doesn't come about right now, we are not going to be waiting. And so we will establish mechanisms and institutions that will provide the benefit to my people. And that's what NDB, for instance, does. That's what many of the BRICS movements and initiatives do. And so these will go in parallel.
We have been at it for more than 100 minutes, and what an incredibly rich discussion, multi-layered discussion it has been. We could go on probably for another few hours, but somewhere one has to stop. So as we end this, I'm not going to dare to summarize this very rich discussion. Just a few takeaways. Number one, that what we saw emerging from this discussion, that despite skepticism and despite speculation about hidden agendas behind expansion of the grouping, by and large, I think here the view among all the speakers was that the expansion of BRICS is a positive development, that it is going to enhance the power of BRICS, it is going to enhance space for global south. Of course, there are issues that needs to be navigated cleverly, that needs to be negotiated with sensitivity to interest of all other countries. But BRICS 2.0 is set to grow further, consolidate its position in the emerging international order. That is a big takeaway. Also, that even though the BRICS has expanded, and despite the addition of new members, which has fueled apprehension about dilution and diffusion of the agenda, probably some things will move with faster pace because the expanded BRICS means more numbers. So there is strength in numbers as well. So the original inspiration of BRICS, which is accelerating reform of global governance architecture, global governance institutions, and the archaic institutions like United Nations still not meeting the needs and aspirations of developing emerging countries, that will have to change. There are many countries that are knocking to get inside the BRICS tent, and there'll be more coming in. So this process seems to be unstoppable. The challenge looking ahead would be how to have a sense of balance as the BRICS expands, and pursues its agenda of renovating the world order to reflect aspirations and interests of the of developing countries, emerging economies, and BRICS is going to reflect this change world order. It's a miniature, and all this talk, we'll see how it evolves. So basically, I would like to end on this note that yes, we are heading to the Kazan summit, so there's no point in the speculation. The declaration, it is said to be a very substantive summit. Let's see what emerges out of it, and how to make the most of BRICS, especially at a time when the world is seething with conflicts and crisis, would be something to watch out for. Now, I'd like to thank all our speakers, all our esteemed guests, Russian ambassador to India, His Excellency Denis Alipov was kind enough to record and send a message, although he could not attend it. My profuse thanks to Roman Babushkin, Deputy Chief of Mission. Most importantly, and to all of you, Professor Anil Sooklal, who has brought some unique insights and and balance and moderation in this discussion, with a unique perspective and long years of experience. Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharyya for illuminating different issues. Nicolas Buchoud, Dr. Victoria Panova, Dipanjan Roy Chaudhury. Many thanks for joining and hanging on. And above all, a big shout out to our tremendous audience. Many of them who've hung on for those last nearly 2 hours and followed the discussion. This just shows that the interest in BRICS is growing, and the kind of response we got to our conference was quite amazing. And it shows that that people want to know more about what is this new combination which is emerging, what is the future of this grouping. And so the original thing about reforming the world order, creating a world order which is more in sync with new realities, we will see in the coming days. Thank you once again for joining. We will compile the findings of this. We'll prepare a report on the basis of all that you have said. It'll be published in a magazine journal, and of course, we'll share it with you. Thank you once again. We'll see you soon again with another edition of our dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, all of you. Anil, can we take a group picture?